Hi YouTube, it's Kathy. Recently I tweeted asking people to drop me some Goodreads links for books that they think that I should read, and today I'm going to go through those links and tell you what I think about them. I didn't ask for certain kind of recs, I didn't even ask for people to recommend me books that they actually like, so we'll see what people did. For the most part, I think that people will have been nice and will actually recommend books that they actually like, because that's what we do here. But who knows, this got a bunch of retweets, so I could have some troll things in here. We'll find out together, because I haven't looked at all. Also, I have no idea what the Twitter algorithm does and how it decides which tweet is first in your replies, because I don't think that these are in chronological order, but barring any disasters, we will get to all of them. The first recommendation is from Rebecca, and it's for The Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo. I haven't heard of this one, so let's see what it's about. Just from scanning the sidebar on the side of Goodreads, I can tell it's fantasy, young adult, has something to do with mythology, there's a romance, it could also be classified as urban fantasy, and it is fiction. So starting out, this synopsis seems perfectly normal. Jeannie Lo is just trying to get into an Ivy League school, she's trying to go to Harvard, she's really good at hitting the books and hitting balls in volleyball, and then all of a sudden her hometown comes under siege from hellspawn straight out of Chinese folklore. So yes, I'm clicking want to read on this immediately. I have a feeling that I'm just going to be adding a lot of books to my want to read list. Next we have a recommendation from Rogan, and that's called The Sigil. Let's see what it's about. On the sidebar, it's fantasy and it's queer, so I'm already here for it. It was just from scanning the top of the Goodreads, it looked like this was published in January, but it's actually going through re-edits, so this is not the final version of the novel, so just a thing that it says. And it says, The Descent meets the Magicians. I'm already intrigued. I haven't actually watched The Descent, but I know about it because I used to be a cave guide, so I know that has to do with caving, and I know that The Magicians is a magic school that is for grown-ups, and yeah, I'm already here for it. Because I don't like to know too much about my books going into them, I just like to read about the top paragraph or so to get a taste for it. And this top paragraph talks about how the main character loses somebody important to him, and then finds a letter, and then one brush of that letter thrusts him into a mystery, and yeah, I'm already interested. Adding to want to read. Our next recommendation is from R, and I could probably even tell you what R would recommend even before looking at the link, but I've already looked at it, and it's The Fever King. This is something that is on my TBR. I don't know much about it. Let's find out together. So it's fantasy, it's young adult, it's queer. It's also listed as science fiction, so I'm wondering if it's science fantasy or if a lot of people have just decided it's the wrong thing. That happens. So from the very first sentence we find out that the protagonist is 16 years old and the sole survivor of a viral magic that has killed his family and made him a technopath. Already want to read it. This was already on my want to read list, but if it wasn't already, it would be now. Mary wants me to check out The House in the Cerulean Sea. I've seen this cover everywhere and it is gorgeous, but let's find out what this is actually about. We've got fantasy, queer, romance, fiction, okay, good. A magical island, a dangerous task, a burning secret. I'm already drawn in. I'm pretty easy. I think that people have tailored their picks to what they think I'm actually going to like, and they've done really well so far. And reading the beginning of the synopsis, I definitely want to read this book. Linus Barker leads a quiet, solitary life. It seems like he lives on this island by himself with his cat and his old records, and he was a caseworker at the department in charge of magical youth. So, yes. Want to read. Mary also double dipped and recommended Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, which I absolutely adored. I've read this one and I really very much enjoyed it. It's a wonderful take on Lord of the Flies, except for it's an all-girls school and weird things happen, pop culture related things happen, and it's way better than Lord of the Flies. I hated that book. Steph has recommended Fuzzy Nation by John Scalzi. I've never actually read any John Scalzi, although I do have red shirts on my list to read, so let's see what this one is about. In genres, this one comes up as science fiction, fiction, and audiobook, so I'm wondering if the audiobook is just really, really good, and that's why it's on the list, because many books have audiobooks these days, and I haven't seen that listed under genres before. What's interesting about this one is it's actually the 7th in a series, and I know Steph. I know if Steph is going to recommend a 7th in a series, you don't really have to have read the other books, so that's intriguing. This one's about a character that prefers to work alone. I'm assuming just basically a big grumpy pants. And he's working alone and he finds all these jewels, which he manages to lay claim to just as ZaraCorp is canceling their contract with him. So he's get fired, he finds these jewels, he's like, well, these are mine now. I think that the only reason I'm not going to immediately put this on my want to read is that I'm one of those weirdos that likes to read things in order, and I can't justify putting another series on my list because I have so many unfinished series right now. Dustin has recommended Odd Girl out. Let's see the genres. We got fiction. There's a couple of different queer fictions. I think it's going to be a female-female romance based on the types of queer fictions that are here. It's also listed as pulp. So apparently Anne Bannon, who's the author of this one, wrote a lot of lesbian pulp novels in the 50s, offering female characters that embrace their sexuality. So in this one, she introduces Laura Landon, whose love affair with her college roommate Beth launched the lesbian pulp genre. So this one is a book from the 50s, and I haven't read any old lesbian pulp, so yeah, that's going on my list. Caitlin has recommended something called 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All, which is a very intriguing title. Let's find out more. So under genres, we've got historical fiction, young adult fantasy. Okay. So this one is set in America during the Second World War. Frankie's mother has died, and Frankie's father has left her and her siblings at an orphanage in Chicago, which is supposed to be only temporary. He's supposed to be getting some money together so he can actually get them a house and that type of thing. And then he shows up for his weekend visit with a new woman and a train ticket out of state, so he's just abandoning his children. That's delightful. The blurb says this is an unforgettable story of two young women, one living, one dead, and right there I'm like, okay, yes, I want that. Allison has recommended The Violet Theory, which appears to be young adult fantasy. I'm already here for it. Secrets lurking in the shadows of the kingdom where the queen has never shown her face. Apparently this kingdom used to have a democracy, but after an uprising, the president was pushed out of power and the monarchy was formed. This seems like something of a chosen one tale. This looks like it might have been self-published because it came out a couple of years ago and only 32 ratings and 19 reviews on it, although it's got a 4.59 at this point. So the people that have read it really love it, so I'm gonna add it to my list. Dakota has recommended Suicide Notes, which appears to be young adult, queer, contemporary, mental health read. I would assume so based on the title. So our protagonist is 15 years old and wakes up on New Year's Day to find himself in the hospital. It appears that he has tried to commit suicide and not been successful. Just reading the synopsis, I wonder if it's going to be kind of detrimental, because even in the synopsis he describes other patients as nut jobs, which is just incredibly unkind. And I scrolled down to see the popular questions, and the first one is talking about how this does seem ableist, and then, you know, the reply to that from somebody else, not the author, some random user on Goodreads, replies in a very ableist way. So just based on that, I think I'm gonna pass on this one. Samantha has recommended The Beast Player, which is fantasy and young adult, and apparently maybe set in Japan, based on the genres. This one is apparently an epic YA fantasy about a girl with special power to communicate with magical beasts, and the warring kingdom only she can save. So it's another chosen one book. That seems cool. The cover is stunning. And you know what? Based on that alone, I'm intrigued. I'll put it on the list. I love that Want to Read is just hundreds of books long. Am I gonna get to all of them? It's the dream, really. Next, Veronique has recommended Hex, which appears to be horror. Ooh, my first horror on this list. Horror, thriller, fiction, fantasy, paranormal potentially in there. And weirdly enough, this is actually on my want to read list already, even though it doesn't seem familiar to me, so let's see what the synopsis says. Whoever is born here is doomed to stay till death. Whoever settles never leaves. Sounds kind of like Night Vale, to be honest. Okay, yeah, I can see why I want to read this. Listen to this part. Welcome to Black Spring, the seemingly picturesque Hudson Valley town haunted by the Black Rock Witch, a 17th century woman whose eyes and mouth are sewn shut. Muzzled, she walks the street and enters your home at will. She stands next to your bed for nights on end. Everybody knows that her eyes may never be opened. That's creepy and weird. I'm really happy that this is already on my want to read list. Veronique also recommended Alive, which appears to be young adult science fiction and possibly dystopian. A teenage girl wakes up to find herself trapped in a coffin. Sold. Already sold. Want to read. Sylvia recommends The Other F Word, celebrating the fat and the fierce, and yeah, I want to read this. It appears to be a short story collection, I'm assuming. Let's find out. Yep, this YA crossover anthology is meant for people of all sizes who desire to be seen and heard in a culture consumed by narrow definitions of beauty. That is perfect wording. I want it. A Pisces Dreams wants me to read Robber Girl, which appears to be a fantasy queer retelling. I'm already on board. Let's see what this is. So this takes place in in Sweden that has been racked by war and is haunted by folk stories that are really, really dark, and Helvig has been raised by her father to steal whatever treasured she desires. But when she sees this men ambushing a woman on the road, she basically saves her, and she finds out that she is a witch. I don't know what this is a retelling of, but I want it. Katie recommends The Storm of Kagan, which is high fantasy. I would have guessed. It seems to be adult. Let's see what it's about. So this is about a mother struggling to repress her violent past, a son struggling to grasp his violent future, and a father blind to the danger that threatens them all. So apparently war is coming to their peninsula. How are they going to deal with it? I'm not the biggest on war-based things. Like, I tend to be like, why can't people just not be jerks? But I also really do like a training montage, so let's toss that on the want to read. Why not? Travis recommends Here Lies Daniel Tate, which appears to be a young adult contemporary mystery thriller. Alright, let's see what it's about. A young street-savvy runaway looking for a place to call home realizes he might have conned his way into the wrong family in this fast-paced and thrilling novel. Yep. Okay. Either pretty much everyone has picked really good books so far, or everyone has picked books with really good first sentences on their Goodreads, because I've added so many things to my list. Kappa recommends A Queen Rises, which is the first in the Children of the Fae series, which is LGBT and fantasy. Excellent. So this seems to be a dark, classic fairy tale kind of feel with a little bit of queer romance, some betrayal. But for whatever reason, just reading the synopsis, I'm not immediately drawn into it. It seems that our main character, Marcella, is of noble birth, but her mom is really, really mean to her, so she spends a lot of time like locked in the cellar without food and shrouded in darkness. And then she's seduced by a duchess's daughter-in-law, but there's something to do with whether or not she's gonna try to marry the king, and I don't know why, but this just isn't quite jumping out at me right now. So Flick has also recommended a book called Odd Girl Out, but it is a different book than previous on this list, which is awesome. The second part of the title for this one is An Autistic Woman in a Neurotypical World, and I'm already drawn into this. I am not exactly neurotypical myself. I have a lot of friends who are not neurotypical, so I'm always interested in reading people's perspectives. And just from the synopsis of this, you find out that the author didn't get her diagnosis of being autistic until she was in her 40s, which in a way doesn't surprise me because women are classically underdiagnosed for autism, so I'm interested to find out how she found out and how that affected her life. Mackenzie has recommended to me The Moment, and there are only 2 sentences in the Goodreads synopsis, and they read, "She does the robot around your kitchen. You love her." This is apparently a queer romance that came out in 2013. It's 350 pages, so it's not like this is a novella. I'm interested. And if you scroll down to the popular questions answered, it reads, "I read a fan fiction with the exact same title and description. Is this the same story, same author, or what?" And the author has replied that yes, they are one and the same. So this is some fan fiction. I don't know of what. I'm intrigued. I'm going to put it on my list to look at later. Gabby has recommended A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I'm already drawn in by the title, but let's find out a little bit more about it. The case is closed. 5 years ago, one girl was murdered by one boy. The police know he did it. Everyone in town knows he did it. But growing up in the same town, our protagonist doesn't think he did it. She chooses this case as the topic for a final year presentation and starts to uncover secrets. And I'm immediately drawn in. This was published last year, and I almost wonder if the first case in Serial was kind of an inspiration for it. But I could be way off base, and also my camera battery is about to die, so I'm gonna switch it out and keep going. The worst thing about your camera dying in the middle of a video is the angle will never be the same because your tripod decides to move, your camera decides to be different, you're in a different spot because you moved. The second worst thing is it means I've been filming for like 45 minutes or an hour, which is not good because I have so many more to go through. Shannon recommends Carte Blanche, which is a romance, a male-male romance, contemporary, has to do with disability. It's under short stories, so yeah, this is only 61 pages long. And just from the first paragraph, I'm assuming that the main character is agoraphobic, and possibly also a germaphobe, because the second line of the synopsis is, "The smell of bleach lulls him to sleep at night, even as he fears everything beyond the confines of his apartment walls." I'd read that. Aoife has recommended The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I absolutely adore this book. It was my favorite book of 2018. Love it, absolutely love it. Good job, Aoife. Lazy Owl has recommended Something is Killing the Children, Volume 1. This appears to be a graphic novel. Even from the cover, it looks beautiful. I'm intrigued based on the title alone. So it appears there are monsters in this small town. They keep taking children, not bringing them back. And then there is a monster hunter. She kills monsters. I'm excited for it. I'm putting it on my list. And I think I've scrolled to my last recommendation. That's from Bunny Cakes, and they recommend The Pecan Man. This appears to be historical fiction in the south of the United States. Let's see what it's about. So this takes place in 1976, and a recently widowed and childless woman hires this black man to mow her lawn, and the children around the neighborhood call him the Pecan Man, and every time he's mowing the lawn, their mothers kind of bring them inside because they're racist. And when the police chief's son is found stabbed to death, he is automatically suspected of the crime. Apparently 25 years later, the main character sets out to tell the truth about the Pecan Man. Why she didn't do it at the time, not entirely sure. This one has been described as To Kill a Mockingbird meets The Help. I wonder how problematic it's going to be. Here's the thing, the reviews of this one seem pretty positive, but I also have trepidation of reading this type of story written by a white person, because it seems to be taking this story of this black person's plight and making it all about her, and that feels a little bit weird to me. And for that reason, I think that I'm going to pass on putting this one on my list. And there you have it. That is what Twitter recommended to me and my initial reaction to those recommendations. When will I actually get to the ones I added to my list? Who knows? If anyone would actually be interested in me going through my want to read list and talking about things, or possibly doing another mass deletion of things that I don't remember, let me know if that would be an interesting video, because I could definitely put that together if I could figure out the technology behind it. Have you read any of these books? And if so, what did you think about them? Let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. A few of you have asked if there's a way to support me, and I recently set up a Ko-fi account, so that link is listed down below, as well as my Amazon wish list. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!